Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some solving an equation in a quadratic form. It's not going to be written as a quadratic, but it will be, once you start solving through it, it will turn into a quadratic. So what we're working with right now is 12x to the fourth minus 11x squared plus 2, and that's going to equal 0. Now, what you're going to want to do is, since this isn't a quadratic, we're going to try to write it as a quadratic. What I want you guys to do is I want you to use substitution. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and substitute. We're going to replace what x squared should actually be. Remember, hopefully you guys remember that we used like u substitution. I'm going to let u equal x squared, so that way u squared is actually equal to x to the fourth. You just squared u, you're going to square x squared. When you square x squared, you get x to the fourth. So now what we'll do is we'll change this something that says x to the fourth and x squared. We're going to change it into a problem that says u squared and u, so that turns into a quadratic. So we're going to rewrite this now as 12u squared minus 11u plus 2 is equal to 0. Now from there, we've got a quadratic. You guys have multiple ways to solve a quadratic, right? You can factor, you can use your quadratic formula, you can go ahead and try to complete the square. I mean, it's up to you guys. There's multiple ways to be able to do this, but ultimately it's up to you guys as to what you want to do. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try and factor this. So remember, in the top left, I'm putting my 12u squared. Bottom right, I'm going to put my plus 2. When I combine those two boxes right there, I should get negative 11u. Now, the one thing that I already know is, since I'm adding to a negative 11, and I'm multiplying to a positive 2, I'm multiplying two negative numbers. That's the only way that this is going to happen. The only way you can multiply to a positive number is either two positives or two negatives. So I'm going to use negative 1 and negative 2, and I'm just going to put negative 1 and negative 2 there. Now from there, I got to remember that I'm trying to multiply to 12u squared. So am I using 12 and 1? Am I using my 4 and 3, my 6 and 2? I knew right away, it might take you guys a little bit more time, that's okay, but I knew I was going to use the 4 and the 3. All right, I'm putting the 4u on this left-hand side, I'm putting the 3u on the top. Once I multiply and fill out those boxes, you'll see that I will get a negative 3u, and then I'm going to get a negative 8u as well. So that gets me my negative 11u. So now I factored this as 3u minus 2 and 4u minus 1. That equals 0. Now remember, we still have to solve. We're not done with this. So we're going to solve each factor now. I'm going to set them equal to 0, and you'll get 2/3 and 1/4. Now we're not done with this problem. Remember, what we did was we started with x to the fourth, we started with x's, and we don't have that right now. We have u's. So we're going to have to go ahead and finish this problem up by replacing u with your x's and solving for your x. All right, so that's the next part. So we have our two u's solved for already. U is equal to 2/3 and u is equal to 1/4. All right, so remember, u is equal to x squared. So we're going to go ahead and replace what u is equal to. U is equal to x squared. These equations are now going to become x squared is equal to 2/3 and x squared is equal to 1/4. From there, we just solve. All right, we had to do substitution to be able to take it and change it into a quadratic, something that we can solve, and then solve for that variable that we used. Now we have u's. Well, wait a minute, remember, we don't want u's, we want to go ahead and replace it back to our original variable. Our original variable was x. So replace the u variable with your x squared variable and solve for your x now. We're going to have to take square roots, right? So that's what I'm putting right here. You're going to square root both sides. All right, when you do that, remember, you're solving for square roots. You're going to get your plus or minus. So I end up getting plus or minus 2/3, and I end up getting plus or minus 1/4, those square roots. Now you have to solve for each of these individually. All right, we're not done with this. We've got these square roots. I want to see what I can do with these square roots. Remember, we try to go as far as you can, guys. We're trying to prepare you for AP. Get ready. All right, so we're going to write plus or minus. I'm square rooting top and bottom individually. That's something that we can do. That's something that you've learned. We got to know how to do this. So square root top and bottom individually becomes square root of 2 over square root of 3. Square root top and bottom individually of the other one, square root of 1 over square root of 4. All right, now what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to go ahead and write this not as the square root of 2. I'm going to start to rationalize. I got a square root on the bottom, the square root of 3. Rationalize, multiply by square root of 3 on top and bottom. All right, on the top you end up getting square root of 6, and remember on the bottom, square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, which becomes 3. So square root of 6 over 3. On the other side, it's much easier. Square root of 1 is just 1, and the square root of 4 is just 2. And those are your two solutions. All right, so this problem we started out with, remember we had to go, I'm going to go all the way back to the front one. We started with 12x to the fourth minus 11x squared plus 2. All right, we had to do substitution. We had to change it into a quadratic, not into something that was raised to the fourth power. And then once you change it into your quadratic, you can go ahead and start to factor, quadratic formula, complete the square. You can do a lot of different types of methods, but once you do solve for the u variable, you have to go back, and this is what we did on the second page. We had to replace what u was equal to, and we had to start solving for x. All right, hopefully it's just going to have to be like square root method in this case, but make sure that that's what we're trying to accomplish. Look at your equations. Can I factor it right now? Is it a quadratic? It's not a quadratic. How am I going to be able to write it as a quadratic so I can go ahead and solve this stuff?